This is the CarterCast, the pre-proposal show for dating couples designed to make engagement ring shopping easy, understandable, and fun. You can get the 4 C's anywhere, but only here can you get the 5th C called Carter. I'm Josh, and this is CGA GG, former president of the AGS and current CEO of Jack Lewis Jewelers, John Carter.
Hello.
Welcome once again to your own show. Today, we're finally tackling a controversial, contentious, polarizing topic that we've been wanting to discuss for a long time now.
We have?
GIF or GIF. Now, it's graphics interchange
Dude,
format.
don't.
It's a hard G.
What? You've been arguing GIF forever.
No, I'm on the hard G side. I've always been arguing GIF.
Oh my gosh.
What we're talking about today, is even more controversial, contentious, and polarizing than how to pronounce GIF.
GIF, agreed. It's GIF.
Lab-grown diamonds. Before we talk about what they even are,
Yep.
I feel like we should define terms.
Okay.
How should we even refer to these stones? Synthetic? Is it lab-grown versus natural? Am I allowed to say the F word? Is it fake versus real?
Yeah.
Set us straight on how we should refer to these.
I mean, the FTC has pretty particular guidelines on how people are supposed to refer to laboratory-grown diamonds.
Okay.
I always use the full terminology, laboratory-grown diamonds.
Okay.
I don't use the term lab diamond. I don't use the term synthetic. There is a little bit of a contentious debate between laboratory-grown and synthetic, because synthetic, of course, means man-made. The FTC rules, though, that term is a little confusing to the consumer, and probably would agree with that. I think most people understand that it means not natural.
Okay.
And you can use the term natural as it applies to diamonds that come out of the ground.
Right.
So to me, the term to use always is laboratory-grown diamond. I feel like it's very specific. I feel like people understand what that means. It means it was created in a lab, in a machine that makes other diamonds. So that's usually the term that I and my team would use here at the store, as to avoid confusion at the counter. Okay.
Is it incorrect or impolite to use some other language, like some of the things I just threw out there?
I think fake is, I don't use the term fake.
Okay.
And I have fairly specific views on laboratory-grown diamonds. I think that you know that. Fake is a little bit insulting to what it is, because there are other gemstones.
I mean, it's a real thing. You can hold it.
Yeah, a unicorn is fake,
Right.
probably. But it is a tangible
It's not
good
imaginary.
that you can buy and hold, and it is chemically and physically the same as a diamond. Now, where I
We'll get into that, yeah.
Yeah, we'll create a separation there later, but fake is not accurate, because it is a diamond. You cannot argue, and even somebody who has a specific stance on it as I do will not argue it is a diamond. The thing that worries me about them is a confusion on part of the customer, where I want to make sure that they truly understand what it is they're buying and why.
Well, let's go to there. So what is it that they're buying? What is a laboratory-grown diamond?
A laboratory-grown diamond is something that has been grown in a machine that mimics the effects of nature. Diamonds, as most people would know, grow in very hostile environments. They grow in what we call HPHT, high pressure, high temperature situations, where the compression, the weight of the earth, and the temperature of the mantle of the earth create an environment that only a diamond could form in. And so what a laboratory-grown diamond in these high-pressure, high-temperature machines is, they'll mimic that. There's also CVD type machines, which is chemical vapo.
Dracula?
No, not Dracula.
No.
I do know that. It's not Jif. And and they will. They're basically grown by layers, by layering the diamond, and so. What type of process is used isn't necessarily important, but what is important is the concept of a created gemstone is not new. Even the concept of a laboratory-grown diamond is not new. Laboratory-grown diamonds were invented, believe it or not, by GE.
Yeah, what's the history of this? Like, how long has this been around? It doesn't seem like it's a passing fad necessarily. It seems like it's been around a while.
They've been around since the 50s.
Okay.
But GE used them at that time mainly there was never any intention for them to be used in as a piece of jewelry. Because the machines that they had at that time were not as advanced as the ones are today, so they only could create very low quality diamonds, like just black looking kind of ugly gemstones, but they were used in industrial drill bits and things like that. They had the same properties for that, and so they actually were a cost-effective way to use those rather than using natural diamonds that were coming out of the ground. It wasn't until the technology changed of it this century that they were able to start making diamonds that were whiter, and then start to use them in engagement rings and jewelry.
So a little bit about what is the technology of it? I mean, I'm trying to imagine.
It's a machine that's the size of.
I'm imagining like Mission Impossible or something, where you see all the lasers and they're like just creating this thing out of nothing and it like slowly builds. Like, is it?
I think the CVD machines kind of work that way, but the ones I think that are most commonly, they kind of look like a golf ball, right? They're just kind of like a big dome, and in this big dome, they're growing, using a seed, always using a seed of a natural diamond. And then it grows from there. The process is really interesting. And again, I'm not a physicist or a chemist or anybody who can probably explain that process as well as somebody who's an expert on that. But just know that the end results, the beginning, it starts with a seed crystal of a natural diamond. And then it grows a laboratory grown, some people would say synthetic, some people could say artificial, whatever you want to call it. But my terminology would be laboratory grown because I feel like it is the best explanation for what it is. But again, going back to man-made gemstones, that's been around for a long time.
Right.
Fun fact for you: when
I love fun facts.
When you throw these things at me, what year do you think they began producing flame fusion rubies? Was, I believe, the first one that they did. I can't give you the exact year, but I can give you the decade.
1776.
Not quite that far, but that's interesting that you would go that far, because that's completely wrong. But you're only off by like 100 years, because...
I guess I could have been off by more.
That worked for you.
Okay, it's a range. I like to be in the range. I'm in the ballpark.
If it was multiple choice, you would.
I would have been very off.
Yeah, you would have only.
I think I was answering the wrong question.
You would have only missed 3 of the 4 options.
I would have. So 1876.
Yeah, it was not quite that, but it was like the 1890s.
Okay.
And so I guess the point is that this concept of, and my counter argument always is, do people still want natural rubies? They do. People still want natural rubies. Sometimes if they want something that's less expensive and still beautiful, you can a laboratory grown ruby or flame fusion or hydrothermal. They have different processes to create those because the gemstones form differently. Are available. So a diamond is similar in that sense, but different in some other ways, because we don't always celebrate love with a flame fusion ruby.
We do not commonly.
Right.
It's true. Okay, let's get a little more into the I want to close with some of the emotional, like symbolic stuff about it, but let's stay in the weeds of some of the tech and the chemical part of it for the minute, because when you talk about words like artificial and words like lab grown or possibly synthetic, that does seem to imply that it's not the same, that it's different. So how is a laboratory grown diamond the same? Is it even right to say the same as a natural diamond? What's the difference? What's different?
Some diamond people watching this would tell you, yes, they are the same. They're wrong. And the reason that they're wrong is they're right in one sense in the fact that, yes, they're chemically and physically the same as a diamond.
Okay.
And what they would say was, well, can I tell the difference with my naked eye? I cannot. Nobody can, right? You need sophisticated equipment to tell the difference. But that sentence alone counteracts their point. If I couldn't tell the difference, a piece of sophisticated equipment, if they were the same, a piece of sophisticated equipment couldn't tell the difference. We have a De Beers Synth-Detect in this store. It was, as you remember when we got it, it was a major investment for us. But every piece of jewelry, every loose stone that comes into us gets tested under that machine, because we want to be confident that we're not selling laboratory grown diamonds unknowingly to our clients and friends, of course. Right. And so what that machine is doing is it's measuring the phosphorescence of the diamond, because a laboratory grown diamond will glow for a fraction of a period of time. It will be, and this machine catches that. And so when you see that in the machine, and my point is if a natural diamond did that, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a laboratory grown diamond and a natural diamond. So they are not exactly the same.
Yeah.
Is it a diamond? It is a diamond. You have to say that they are diamonds, but you cannot say that they're the same.
So
if they were the same, you couldn't see the difference.
Right. So that is how I wanted to just spend a little more on that. So that is how you can tell the difference. Is you can put it under this machine, which again, to your point, the fact that there is a machine that can tell the difference means that they aren't exactly the same in every respect, because you can obviously tell a difference.
Right.
And it's about the phosphorescence is typically what it is, and there's a certain glow that a synthetic diamond will have that a natural one won't.
I believe this machine measures the photophosphorescence, which is when it's hit with ultraviolet light, how long it will glow after the fact that it's hit with that. And it's nanoseconds.
Sure.
But that's how this machine makes the differentiation between those. Most retailers nowadays, at least my friends in the industry, are testing for these things. I think most suppliers are testing for these things because if they have something made overseas and it comes to them and it comes to us, but we're testing everything on the front lines because we want to be as confident in that as possible, because it's not that it's wrong or incorrect to buy a laboratory grown diamond, but the client needs to understand what it is that they're buying and know that that needs to be disclosed to them, to that is what they're getting. So
if I brought a diamond in today, you could test it for me?
Sure.
And see if it's a natural diamond. Should I do that? Is that something people are doing? Or, I don't know, curiosity or?
You certainly could. I've not offered that as a service to the general public because
wouldn't be worth it.
It's just but if we can catch it in the beginning, it's worth it.
Sure.
But after the fact, if it's if you got something that you want to do that with, it's probably not.
Yeah.
And most everything nowadays that we're selling. That's one of the reasons why we love American Gem Society grading reports or reports from GIA and places like that, because they are catching those things as the diamond goes in to have a grading report. It would immediately be synth-detected, as we call it.
Okay, so this brings up. We've done a whole episode on grading reports and everything that goes into a grading report about the cut and some of the clarity stuff. And it plots the inclusions.
We didn't talk about that though.
Well, right, but if I'm buying a laboratory grown diamond, do I need a grading report? Are they going to artificially put an inclusion in there or something? It's like
they still can have inclusions and they still can be off color. For the most part, though, because they're controlling everything. The thing about a laboratory grown diamond is you can make the same diamond millions of times.
Right.
And so it's not quite as simple as just turning a knob and saying, I'm going to get a DVS1. There still are inclusions in those. To me, I've always been somewhat offended by the concept of using the color grading scale and the clarity grading scale to grade natural diamonds, because that terminology.
To grade lab-grown diamonds?
Yeah, and people have, but that terminology was created in the 50s and 60s by GIA to talk about the rarity of a natural diamond. A diamond with no body color is rarer. A D is rarer than an H. So using that terminology to describe natural diamonds is appropriate. Using it and applying it to a man-made technological creation, I always felt a little offended by, because it doesn't have the same connotation. They should all be VS1 or better for the most part. The ones made nowadays, the ones that a GE made in the 50s were I3s, right? So they always should be top color and top clarity. Why would you buy a lab grown and not have it be top color and top clarity?
Right.
Why would you also buy a lab grown and make it not be an AGS 000 perfectly cut grade diamond?
Right.
Because the waste to cut a diamond into that is almost nothing. As you know, with my time on the American Gem Society board of directors and now on the American Gem Society laboratory advisory board, we just came out with a product last year for laboratory grown diamonds. There was much debate. Do we do this? Do we not do this? And one of the things that we were really insistent on in that committee was, if we're going to use, we have to have something to explain the color and clarity, but it shouldn't be the same. But you also can't reinvent the wheel either, because people are somewhat familiar with that process. So at least the way that we've notated that is it'll say LG-F color, LG-VS2. So there is a clear line drawn between a lab grown and a natural diamond, because you should know the difference between a laboratory grown diamond, and a natural diamond. And while we're using the terminology, it really doesn't mean quite the same thing. It doesn't have quite the ramifications on a laboratory grown, because they all should be pretty top color, top clarity. Most importantly, insist on the quality of the cut grade. Get something that has those AGS cut grade standards, because as we've talked about in previous episodes, and if people haven't seen those, they should watch that, because the one that we spend on cut grade, I think is very specific and really gives a good education for why cut grade is so important, not just to me, not just to what we do here at my store, but why it makes a difference in how much a diamond sparkles. So now if you're buying a diamond that's significantly less expensive to produce, meaning versus millions of dollars to get things out of the ground and then cut it, and then the waste now is a factor. Now you have a diamond that you can make 1 million times. Why would you not try to get the best performance out of that diamond? Why would you buy one that is not cut to those standards?
Right. Why do these exist? Like what's the you mentioned that they ultimately, with GE, is how they started. They're using it for probably commercial purposes or industrial purposes, because diamond is hard and that makes sense, and they built them in the lab, and then it evolved into jewelry, probably just because people are like, well, hey, it's diamond. Can we do this with a ring? But what's your take on why these exist now? Like, what's the motivation for this?
As against them as I am to sell them, I don't think that they're necessarily a wrong choice for people to lean towards. They are a less expensive option for people. So if they want a 1 carat, a natural diamond is going to run a certain price, and a laboratory grown diamond is going to run maybe $2,500. I want to say maybe $2,000 for a 1 carat. It might even be significantly less than that. Now I can tell you that there are companies that sell a 1 carat lab grown finished in a sterling pendant for $800 for a 1 carat. Now you and I have been talking about this for years. Do you remember when you and I first started talking? Do you remember what the price of that 1 carat was 5 years ago, 4 years ago?
I don't know.
It was over $5,000. And so what people will say, people will make the argument, they'll say, well, just like flat screen TVs change and just like your iPhone change. The difference with those technological changes is nobody ever bought a flat screen TV to celebrate the person they're going to spend the rest of their life with. And that's really where I kind of draw the line. And yes, I certainly could have made the decision years ago to make money the whole way down as the price dropped. But I've never really felt right about that. I'm not judging. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it, because I think everybody that I know that has sold them has been really upfront with the client. We cannot guarantee future value. Just like you really can't walk into a store and buy a natural 1 carat and say, I'm going to buy this for $5,000 and in a couple of years I'm going to sell it and make money. That's not really how this process works either.
Sure.
But it's always worth something. And the tangible benefits of having a laboratory grown diamond, nobody knows what that is other than probably zero.
Yeah.
At some point.
I mean, when you can just make them another one in a lab the same way, and again, I don't imagine there's any improvements. Like they've
got it. Is the reason why, to your point about why they exist now, is because the technology has changed so much and vastly improved the quality that they could do them in.
I mean, I guess what I want to say is just cynically, I assume they exist because they're fairly cheap to make, and they still think they can charge a lot for them, because people think diamonds should be X price, and the reality is this probably cost $100 to make. But I'm still going to be able to get a bunch out of it because people expect to pay $4,000 or $5,000, and so that's the range they're used to. And so we can just make a killer ton of money on this thing that isn't the same standard as people are used to from the natural equivalent of what those prices are at.
I would say
that's my cynical rant about it.
I would say it's probably a little too cynical.
Okay.
Because I'm not.
That's why you're here, to reel me in.
Yeah, and again, I think people make their own. I think people it's a free market for a reason, right? People make their own choices because it's what's right for their for their pocketbook. It's what's right for their relationship.
Yep.
Maybe somebody, and you and I are huge advocates of this, right? When somebody's just starting out, we don't want to see people go into a huge hole.
For sure. Yep.
Don't go buy a 5 carat if you can't afford a 5 carat. Don't go buy a 1 carat if you can't afford it.
Right.
You and I and Missy and our team have worked really hard to layer our inventory so there are right natural diamonds in everybody's budget, right?
Yep.
We have engagement rings that start at $500. All natural diamonds, as I mentioned earlier, everything is screened, everything is checked, everything is put in the case. Because we truly do live that motto of size doesn't matter, your love matters, right? I have made a very conscious choice over the years to layer my diamond inventory to give somebody a 1 carat option that competes very closely with that 1 carat lab grown option. Maybe it's a little bit smaller, maybe the clarity is on the lower scale, but the diamond will still face up beautifully and it will be a natural diamond. I've worked really hard to do that, where you can walk in and buy a 1 carat diamond for $4,000 or less. That's really hard to do. You can buy a 3/4 carat for $1,000 to $1,500.
Right.
You can do that in that Jack Lewis Spark collection that we have. And I think a lot of other retailers around the country have done that. You have to give alternatives instead of just saying lab grown bad. It's not that. It's not that the laboratory grown diamonds are bad.
Yeah.
I think that they hit a certain niche in the market and they're doing some good, but I don't feel like people truly understand what it is that they've bought, because they also have bought into a narrative of how they're made and other advantages, which has not necessarily been an accurate story, in my opinion.
That's where I was going to go next. Is why would someone opt for a laboratory grown diamond? And I think one of the assumptions is cost, which we've kind of already hinted at a little bit. The other one I think is this sustainability. Right. That somehow they're more sustainable than natural diamonds would be. What's your thoughts on that?
Initially, and I think that they've backed off this over the last 24 months because the FTC sort of said, don't do this. They were selling them as green. So you'll hear the term laboratory grown diamonds are green. The FTC said they cannot say that. And the reason that they cannot say that is because it still takes an immense amount of energy to run these machines. Where does the energy come from? Coal burning plants, right? That's not green.
No, I don't believe so.
There's no other way to say that. That is not green. So you can't buy into them because of that argument. You could say, well, there was no hole punched in the earth to do these things. I encourage everybody, don't take it from me. You would all view me probably as a diamond guy, but do some research on what the mining companies around the world do for the local environment and how they restore the environment when they're done with it, and what they can use kimberlite for, which is the host rock that diamonds are found in. The good that they can do with the kimberlite that they take out of the earth. Kimberlites can serve as a scrubbing mechanism in power plants, so it actually can capture carbon as it's released into the earth, which creates a negative carbon footprint eventually as they can improve that process. And the other thing is that people, very good meaning, good intentioned people will walk in and say, well, I don't want to support the diamond industry. You and I did an entire episode in December about the good that Forevermark does for Botswana. Mm-hmm. Just look up Diamonds Do Good and see the good that is done in Botswana and what kind of an economy Botswana would have if they weren't taking natural diamonds out of the earth. This builds schools, it builds hospitals, it builds an entire infrastructure, and has created an actually a much wealthier nation than it was before. And now the diamonds are actually cut in Botswana. Yeah. So they don't even export the country in their raw state. They're exporting the country in their highest value state, which meaning the diamond is cut, it's finished, it's ready to be sold into market. So now they're retaining even more than that. So a good intentioned person can say, I'm going to boycott natural diamonds altogether, and you're really not doing that much good. You might feel better about the environmental impact, and you can definitely, there are pros and cons on both sides that you have to acknowledge that. But for the most part, I think the argument that's been sold to a lot of people has been full of holes.
Yeah, it's an incomplete perspective.
Yes.
There's more information out there that
you
could learn that might shift and more moderate your position a little more on that issue. So I would imagine that some jewelry stores in the country kind of approach it like, hey, if that's what people want, that's what we'll sell them. Why should I care what they buy? There's money to be made. Let's jump on board so they don't go somewhere else. Why haven't you adopted that mindset? You don't sell laboratory-grown diamonds here at Jack Lewis Jewelers. Why not?
We'd never say never. Okay. First of all, I mean, you and I have talked about that, and I don't want to be so cynical and judge anybody who's chosen to sell them that I think that they're just doing it because they can make money. I do think there's an element of clients do ask for it, and there is a factor on our side of things that we have to say, this is why we've definitively chosen not to do it. Mm-hmm. that creates a conversation, but a chance, in my opinion, to educate. Because jewelry is a field that you cannot be an expert on by Googling it. You and I have established that, I think, it's the reason we have a whole series of these videos, is to have these crucial conversations.
That's true with most things, by the way.
Exactly, yeah. Most people are an expert, though, after they've read one article.
My degree is not the equivalent of your Google search, is the idea.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that I have specifically, your question is why have I chosen not to, is because I don't feel like this story has ever been true or complete to this point. And I also don't think that the price has been what it should be. I remember I read an article about 4 years ago that said, just in China, there were 10,000 machines growing diamonds at that point. That was one country.
Wow.
And 5 years ago. So you can imagine what it probably is today.
Yeah.
And so there's a reason why that price is doing that, and that's okay if somebody wants to get a 1 carat, because to me that should be probably where the magic number is, in that $500 to $800 price range for a 1 carat. It almost doesn't matter how big it is. It really isn't even done per carat like a natural diamond is. Yeah. And so until that story gets to be a little bit more accurate, and the price is more representative of what the item actually should cost, we'll continue to stock great natural options that I think give people a pretty good reason not to buy a laboratory-grown diamond. That's the best thing that I can do, in my opinion, at this stage. And it, as again, I never say never. I don't want this to be on video. You could come in here in the future and see laboratory-grown diamonds, but that for me will be where the story evens out. And where the price and the product seem to catch up to that. Sure. And makes logical sense for a purchase that I can, with a clear conscience, say, yes, you should buy this.
So what advice, as we wrap up, what advice would you give a couple who's considering a laboratory-grown diamond versus a natural diamond?
Definitely consider it. I mean, you should be weighing all your options as to what's right for your lifestyle. And to those people who have bought one, no judgment. Right? This is not that. This is
because again, they have bought a diamond. Like, it is a diamond. So some of the things we said earlier about the differences and how you can tell there's a difference, it doesn't mean that it's not chemically a diamond.
Yeah.
So
anybody who would say that it isn't is being either dishonest or misinformed. It is a diamond, right? It is not the same. Right? It is not the same as we've established, because if it was the same, you couldn't tell the difference. Right. There would be no way to differentiate a natural from a laboratory-grown diamond, and then that would be a real problem. Yeah. So we don't have that, but you should weigh it as an option. You should look at what is the price of a laboratory-grown 1 carat today, I'd use 1 carat because that seems to be a good starting point. What is the price of that? But most importantly, historically, what was the price of that even a year ago? And does that influence your decision at all? Because then maybe extrapolate that and say, I don't know what it's going to be in a year. I can't promise you it's going to be less. I can tell you that every year it has been, so it probably would be, but those things should weigh into the decision. And then, okay, maybe if I don't need a DVS1, everybody starts this process with a specific budget in mind. Sure. Keep your budget where it's at, but what can I afford for that budget in a natural diamond versus what can I get for a laboratory-grown diamond? Yeah. Come in and talk to us. We won't judge. We don't have a negative conversation about it. It's just an actual, realistic. Here's why we don't do it. Here's what the market looks like. Here's what our 1 carat Jack Lewis flames look like. Here's what the sizzles look like. Here's what the sparks look like. Here's what a fire and ice looks like. And just make that decision for yourself. But the one thing I promise everybody, and this applies to laboratory grown too, what we do is, as I've said in another video, this is not rocket science, but it does take experience. And the person buying it doesn't have the time to be enough of an expert to truly understand it. So you do need an industry professional to help walk you through the process. And a good store will help you do that with no judgment.
I think there's certainly the market considerations, but here I know we talk a lot about love means everything, and that size doesn't matter, love matters. I mean, it's we've talked before about engagement rings and diamonds, that this is an emotional, symbolic, meaningful purchase that you're going to make. And so I think that's where I would go with it. Like, that's just my kind of personality, that I like to look at that aspect. And, your relationship wasn't grown in a lab, and your love isn't synthetic, and to me, I think that side of it is what I would, to your point, like, that's not necessarily a knock on the laboratory grown technology is trying to elevate the natural argument. It's trying to elevate like what's kind of wrapped up in the idea of a natural diamond.
Right.
And it's natural diamonds are formed over time under pressure, and they come out with a few imperfections, probably just like your relationship.
Yeah.
And it's a nice natural. You talk about diamonds being rare and beautiful and all those things, and I think I would say natural fits into that too when you're talking about the symbolism for your relationship. So, I mean, I guess you might have some people who consider that aspect of it too, in addition to the market factors and just the cold kind of numbers and all that part of it. It all probably plays together, but I mean, I think that's where I would tend to land on that. But,
you're a sentimental guy,
Yeah, sure.
And I think that, and despite the fact that it's an engagement ring, not everybody would be as sentimental about that. So it is possible to look at it from a more technical side of things and say, it's a diamond, it's much less. I can get a bigger diamond for less, and and I'm fine with that.
For sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great decision for you. Give somebody the chance, though, to show you what an equivalent natural diamond would look like for your money. That would be my best bet. If you've already done all the internet research that you can imagine, you've seen everything you need to see about laboratory-grown diamonds to feel good about it, cool. Do that, but don't not look at natural diamonds in the process, because that's a decision you could regret down the road. To your point, I love the sentimentality of what a natural diamond represents because of everything that you said.
Yeah.
It's a diamond is forever is the most beautiful slogan, in my opinion, ever made, because it's not only an effective marketing slogan, it's specific about what the product represents. And it's timeless, just like somebody's love, and it represents spending an eternity together and all those other things. And to me, a laboratory-grown diamond doesn't represent that the same way, but not everybody would look at it with the same colored lenses.
For sure. John Carter, you are 100% natural.
Always.
We'll be right back with the Final Facet.
Jewelry is more than just shiny metals and sparkly rocks. It's the symbol that tells your story. With diamonds, engagement rings, wedding bands, and fashionable gifts for every budget, come discover the jewelry that says your love means everything. Jack Lewis Jewelers in Bloomington and jacklewisjewelers.com.
So the conversation about natural versus laboratory-grown diamonds really comes down to one thing. It's about you. But my best advice is don't settle on a laboratory-grown diamond without exploring the concept of a natural diamond as well. At the end of the day, it really is about you and about what symbol allows you to express your love. It's not about how much money you spend. It's not even about what you spend it on. It's about spending the rest of your life together with the person that you love the most in the world. We're here to help you do that. As we always say at Jack Lewis Jewelers, size doesn't matter, your love matters. Thanks, everybody.